pads. I here have got boxes and boxes of various brands and makes of pads. The things I do at home are more on a budget than what I would do at work. So I thought I'll save myself a few pounds. I can buy boxes of 100 DA discs for £8, £10, really cheap. The downside I've come to learn, they don't last very long. So even though you've got a grand stock and you've got loads of pads, they don't last very long. I've now made a conscious decision over probably about the last 5 years, and this is not brand picking at all. I'm not trying to sponsor any brand at all. I'm just trying to save you guys money. I only use Merkur or 3M pads. These red pads, the 3M ones, as you can see, most of these pads have been used. You can see filler on them, but they're still rough. There's still life in them. I keep a handful of pads that I keep going back forwards to, so if I'm changing a grade from a 320 to a 6 or whatever, I swap it over on the sander, because obviously being Velcro, use it, swap it back for the next job. So I've continually got a handful of pads that I use over and over and over and over again. They just don't wear out. So yes, they're a little bit dearer. They're going from about 15, 17, 18 pounds a box. So they're probably 50% more expensive again than the cheaper ones, but I'm finding that they're just lasting probably 4 times the length in time. So as I say, Merkur, all 3Ms, they just last. So stick to a good brand of pads. That's the thing. I've seen a lot of guys on the internet at the moment. You can buy 3M or Merkur pads in mixed boxes. So they'll sell you a box of pads with 3 or 4 different grades in for the cost of 1 box. So you don't have to go out big expense and buy 6 boxes of pads. You can just buy the one, and it has, I think it's 20 discs of each grade in a box. They know they last, and that's why they're doing it, because you've got, if you're just doing 2 or 3 resprays, there's enough in 1 box to do the 2 or 3 resprays easy. Right, our last DA sander of the day. This one is a Facom sander. Right, I shouldn't rightly say that. This one's marked up Kwani, but from the information, the pictures, the spec sheets, it's what Facom label up as their sander. Facom, extremely good tool company. So I'm assuming, and I've yet to put this one to a longevity test, but I'm thinking that this one will be exactly the same. This will be a very good sander in service. This sander is a hard density pad. It's only about 10mm wide. It's a hard, like a carbon fibre or fiberglass type material. No deflection on the edge. It's hard. It doesn't do anything. It's really solid. This sander serves no purpose for sanding primers or anything like that. It's got that fine an orbit that it will take ages to sand the primer down. This one is specifically used for flattening a car. If you've painted a car and you've got excess orange peel that you want to knock out, if you've got debris in the surface and you want to knock it out and polish the car, or if you want to flow coat the car, if you've painted the car all over and you want a show finish, the easiest thing to do is flat back that car, take all the orange peel completely out, and then put another 2 coats of fresh clear on the top. The fresh clear flows out extremely well, like a glass finish. So it's called flow coating. So with any of those functions, all you're trying to do is knock down an orange peel. or take out debris. So you want no deflection, you want sort of a planing action to plane out the debris or to plane off the orange peel. So for that, this is a 2.5mm orbit sander with extraction, so you can do this sort of dry if you want, but I would think a little spritzer by the side with an Abralon pad is what I use. These Abralon pads, sanding abrasive on the surface. It's got a pad built into it, an interface pad we'll say built into it, and then Velcro on the back side. I would use these pads. I would start off with these if you're going to remove orange peel, with a 1000 grit, then go 2000 grit, and then 3000 grit. After 3000 grit, the scratch is so fine the car begins to shine again. So the 1000 grit, it would look like a rubbed down finish. So you could also use those, a 1000 grit, in your blend areas. If you're going to blend a panel and you are needing to knock the shine off so that the clear lacquer will adhere to the clear lacquer that's on the car, so just your blend area, these Abralon pads, 1000 grit, ideal for that. Or for the aggressive part of sanding down orange peel prior to polishing or flow coating. But yeah, once you get to the 3000 grit in these all over the car, the shine sort of comes back again. It sort of goes to a satin or a semi-gloss finish, which makes your sanding life really easy. It doesn't take a lot to knock it down after. So yeah, you use a hard density pad, a thin pad, 2.5mm orbit with the Abralon pad on, and that will knock down orange peel. That just takes orange peel off. Because there's a little bit of a intermediate pad in there, it helps you if you were just to accidentally scuff across an edge of a pressing in a wing, or a step pressing in a bonnet or whatever. It stays away from the edges quite a lot. It doesn't sand hard into the edge, so that they're quite safe to use. You don't have to be that cautious as you need to tape up with masking tape your lines, although that's a good practice to get into if you're still learning, rather than either with a polishing mop or a sander, rather than take the paint off with pressing or a line in a wing or a fender. You can use like an interface pad, and that helps, or as I say, mask the line off. Interface pad, that's an interface pad. I use a 1cm one. Once again, if you're sanding in a blended area, either use the Abralon pad that's already got one on, or you can use an ordinary 1000 grit disc pad. I haven't got one here, but this is a rougher one, but a standard pad, but put it onto your interface pad, and that will work the same. Because the Abralon pads are rather expensive. They're like £20 a box, and there's only like 10 in the box. They're really expensive, but they work really, really well. So you can use just an ordinary 1000 grit or 2000 grit pad, and then an interface pad. That will do the same. These are only, as I say, for final sanding areas, or areas where you don't want to rub through. So they just give that little bit of flexibility, and when they come up to a panelled edge, they deflect slightly and come away from it, so you've got main of the pressure going down to the centre of the pad. The outside of the pad, because of the flexibility of this and the flexibility of your interface pad, it just rides away from your grooves and edges. Just gives you that little bit of a 1 second gap to say, "Ooh, I'm on an edge, move away." So that's what that's for. Right, have I covered everything that I said I was going to cover? I think I have. So we've got grades of pads. I like the 180 for final sanding of filler. I use a 320 to sand the filler ready for primer. 500 or 600 grit for knocking down your primer dependent on whether you're going to cover it with a solvent-based base coat or water-based. Water-based requires a slightly finer paper. Next grade of pad is 800 or 1000, mainly for blend areas, so just use that. So once again, you're only into 4 grades of pads. So like I say, these guys on the internet selling the 3M or the Norton pads in mixed boxes. You only need 1 box of pads and you'll have plenty to do your project. That basically covers powered sanding. I don't think there's anything else I've missed out. If there's anything that you guys want to know, obviously pop a message in the message box and I'll get back to you. But as general things go, we've dealt with flatbed sanders, the airfoils, the jitterplug to use conventional wet and dry, the old style DA for linishing, that's its best function really today. Coarse orbit sanders for sanding down fillers and primers, fine orbit sanders for finishing paints and for knocking out debris or taking orange peel away from a car to get a show finish. And electric sanders are exactly the same. You can get them in different density pads, different orbits. This one actually came with a 5-inch pad on, and I changed that up for a 6-inch because obviously in the motoring industry, that's a DIY sold at my local DIYer. Motoring industry mainly supply 6-inch discs. If you try and buy 5-inch discs, they're mainly sold from your DIY shop, and they're horrendous money. They're like £6 or £8 for like 5 discs. It's I don't know why 5-inch discs doesn't really do it for me at all. So yeah, just energy saving. The other thing for me here, which I'd like to mention because I'm in a rural area, there's houses around me. It's much better on my neighbours to be using a very, very quiet electric sander if I'm into the late evenings doing a job than having my 5.5 horsepower compressor running outside. Even though it's in a soundproof shed, it's still better for me, for my electric bill, and better from a noise point of view as well. That's about it really. The only thing that I could say with all these sanders, all the new ones, they're all dust extracted type sanders. I do have my Sealy dust extraction unit there. You plug an air line into the extraction unit, and then there's an airline port out of the unit. It's got one function for continually on for the dust extraction and one for pulsed. And what happens is when you key a trigger on any of the sanders, it just senses the air going through the airline part, and it brings the dust extraction unit on and off as you key in the trigger. So I keep that part out the way. I've got like about a 6-meter hose on it, so I can use it anywhere in here or outside if I've got trestles and things set up outside. The vacuum hose just reaches from there. It's got the correct fittings on to fit. All these sanders have all got the same diameter dust extraction fitting on the end, so that I've got one fitting that fits all my sanders. Right, that's about it really. I hope it was interesting. I will set up, probably not today now, probably be tomorrow. I will set up with a similar sort of setup of hand sanding equipment. I've got some nice Jura block setups. I love the Mirka kit again. I've got some special Mirka sanding blocks with different profile caps that fit on the underside of the sanders. The old style when I first started, the standard 3M rubber block, which I don't really use at all anymore. But yeah, various different hand sanding blocks where you'd use them, what grades of paper you'd use. And to be fair, the grades of paper are pretty similar on power tools or hand tools. The only difference I go into is if you're going to flat and polish a painted item, I will be going into the wet sanding with once again 3M paper, into the 1500 and 2000 grades, and showing how to just denib out little bits of foreign bodies and lumps of dirt that occasionally get in the paint. But yeah, just the important thing to note, all air sanders require lots of oil, not as much as it's throwing all over the place and getting oil and contaminants on your painted job. That'll be disaster. I always use this little puffer, 3 drops in the airline twice a week. All the sanding debris and dust seems to collect underneath the bottom of the sander then and hold that oil there so it can be wiped off. It doesn't throw it all over the place. But as I say, to look after a tool, still going 40 years later, my original tool, and it runs as sweet as a nut even to this day. Right, hope that was interesting. As I say, anything I've missed out, anything you're not quite sure on, anything I've contradicted myself on and said it twice the wrong way round, which I do, just let me know and I'll clarify anything that I've said wrong. But that's this morning's rant on power sanding. I'll be back soon with hand sanding. See you guys.